Some whiskies you drink and forget by the weekend. A few you remember for the rest of your life. This is not a value list. This is the bucket list. 30 whiskies anyone serious about this stuff should get a glass of at least once. From a gateway bottle you can grab tonight to a unicorn people chase for a decade. Some sit in your local shop right now, a couple you might travel for. We are counting down to the one pour worth chasing the hardest. One quick rule before we start. Every bottle here had to earn its place. You can realistically get to it, whether you buy it tonight or find a single pour at a good bar. It has to deliver in the glass, and it has to represent something worth tasting once. Most of this list is affordable. Only a few at the top are true white whales. Let us start at number 30. Number 30, Deanston 12. We open with a bottle almost nobody outside whiskey circles talks about, and that is exactly why it earns the spot. Deanston is a Highland distillery in an old converted cotton mill, and the 12-year-old is one of the great quiet bargains in Scotch. Bottled at 46.3% with no chill filtering and no added colouring, it gives you honey, malt, green apple, and a clean, creamy finish. For around $45, it drinks like something far pricier, and hardly anyone has heard of it. That is the whole point of a hidden gem. Start here and quietly know better than the people paying triple for a famous label. Number 29, Glenfiddich 12. If that last one was the bottle nobody talks about, Glenfiddich is the one everybody knows, and the bottle that built the road. Back when single malt was hidden inside blends, the Grant family decided to sell theirs on its own, and the industry followed. The 12-year-old is one of the best-selling single malts in the world for good reason. Crisp green pear, a touch of fresh oak, and a clean finish that never overstays its welcome. At 40% and around $40, it is not built to blow your head off. It is built to show you what a speyside malt should taste like. And it still does that better than bottles costing 3 times more. Number 28, Maker's Mark. Across the ocean to Kentucky, and one of the most recognizable bottles anywhere thanks to that hand-dipped red wax. Maker's Mark swaps the usual rye in the recipe for soft red winter wheat, trading spice for a rounded, gentle sweetness. Think warm caramel, vanilla, a little baked bread, and almost no burn. At 45% and about $30, it proves a wheated bourbon can be soft without being boring. If you have only ever had spicy, high rye bourbon, this opens a different door. It is also your first taste of the wheated style, a thread that runs through this whole list and ends at the most hunted bottle on it. Number 27, Lot Number 40. Staying in North America but crossing into Canada, whose whiskey got written off for years as light mixer fuel. Lot Number 40 flips that on its head, made entirely from rye and distilled in a single pot still. It tastes nothing like the cheap stuff that built the reputation. Bold, spicy rye up front, then cloves, dark fruit, a little eucalyptus, and a long peppery finish with real backbone. At 43% and around $45, it is a steal for this much character. If you still think Canadian whiskey is boring, this proves you wrong in one sip. It even helped spark a Canadian rye revival, and one of those ryes was later named the best whiskey in the world. Number 26, Wild Turkey 101. Back to Kentucky for the bourbon bartenders quietly reach for when nobody is looking. Wild Turkey 101 is named for its strength, a sturdy 50.5%, and it has been made by the same family of distillers for generations. Big, bold bourbon with nothing to hide. Vanilla, toffee, a serious hit of baking spice, and enough proof to stand tall in any cocktail. For around $25, it is one of the best values in all of whiskey, full stop. It does not chase trends and never has. It just delivers year after year, and that consistency is why it lives on shelves worldwide. Number 25, Penderyn Madeira. Across the Atlantic to Wales, a country that had not made whiskey in roughly 100 years until Penderyn fired up in the Brecon Beacons and brought the tradition back. Their signature bottle is finished in Madeira casks, giving it a light, bright, almost delicate character that sets it apart from its Scottish neighbours. Flavours include green apple, citrus, vanilla, and raisins, with a clean, elegant finish. At 46% and priced at around $60, it is the whole story of Welsh whiskey in one glass, a tradition nearly lost and then rebuilt from scratch. Number 24, Redbreast 12, over to Ireland for the bottle that reminded the world Irish whiskey can be world-class. Redbreast 12 is single pot still, a uniquely Irish style made from malted and unmalted barley in one distillery, and a style Scotland legally cannot make. Matured in bourbon and sherry casks, it pours thick, oily, and almost chewy, packed with dried fruit, toasted nuts, spice, and Christmas cake richness. At 40% and around $65, it converts Scotch drinkers who swore Irish whiskey was too soft. This is not soft. This is full, layered, and grown up. If you only ever try one Irish whiskey, the case for this one is hard to argue against. Number 23, Nicker from the Barrel. Time for Japan and a little square bottle that punches so far above its weight, it feels like a trick. Nicker from the Barrel marries malt and grain whiskies and bottles them at a hefty 51.4% for around $50 a bottle, smaller than usual. Do not let the size fool you. It is concentrated, full-bodied, and bursting with caramel, dried fruit, spice, and deep oaky richness. This is the bottle Japanese whiskey lovers hand to skeptics to end the argument. The category has a reputation for being expensive and hard to find, and a lot of it is. This one is the glorious exception, and it belongs in every glass at least once. Number 22, Talisker 10. Back to Scotland, out to the rugged Isle of Skye, for a whiskey with real attitude. Talisker 10 is made beside the sea and tastes like it. There is a famous burst of cracked black pepper on the finish, wrapped around brine, smoke, citrus, and a warming sweetness underneath. Bottled at a punchy 45.8%, it carries real weight and a proper kick. For around $55, it is one of the most characterful malts going, the kind of bottle that makes you sit up straight. This is your proper introduction to coastal whiskey, the one that grabs you by the collar and shakes you awake. Number 21, Four Roses Single Barrel, back to Kentucky for the distillery that quietly does things its own way. Four Roses is the only major bourbon maker built around a web of different recipes and yeasts, and the single barrel showcases the boldest of them. Bottled at a confident 50%, it is the high rye side of bourbon, done with elegance, full of ripe red fruit, baking spice, clove, and a long, dry, almost floral finish you will not find in the softer wheated bottles on this list. For around $50, it is one of the most distinctive pours in Kentucky. If your idea of bourbon is just sweet and oaky, this is the bottle that broadens the whole picture. Number 20, Bimber Single Malt. Now to England, which almost nobody associates with great whiskey, and that is exactly why it belongs. England barely had a working distillery for over 100 years. Then a wave of makers set out to prove the country could do it properly. Bimber, out of London, leads that charge, fermenting longer than almost anyone and distilling in small copper pot stills. The result punches massively above a distillery this young. Ripe orchard fruit, honey, vanilla, and a creamy, almost tropical depth that tastes far older than it is. The core single malt is bottled at 46%, runs around $100, and tells you the old whiskey map is being redrawn. Number 19, Rittenhouse Rye, switching grains for the bottle that quietly built 1,000 cocktails. Long before bourbon took over, rye was the king of American spirits, and Rittenhouse keeps that tradition alive at a price anyone can afford. It is bottled in bond, the work of one distillery and one season, aged at least 4 years, and bottled at exactly 50% alcohol by volume. What lands in the glass is dry, spicy, and assertive, full of cinnamon, clove, and dark fruit that refuses to be pushed around in a drink. For around $30, it is the backbone of a proper Manhattan and a Sazerac. Every whiskey lover should taste a real rye at full strength once, and this does it best for the money. Number 18. Powers John's Lane, back to Ireland for a single pot still that serious drinkers rate above almost anything else on the island. Powers John's Lane is named for the old Dublin distillery that once stood on that street, and it carries that history in every drop. This is the richer, deeper side of Irish whiskey, bottled at a generous 46%, with honey, toasted oak, baking spice, dried apricot, and that thick, mouth-coating pot still texture. For around $70, it sits a clear step above the gentler Irish bottles most know. If Redbreast earlier opened the door to single pot still, this is the room you actually came to see. A genuine connoisseur pour at a fair price. Number 17, Clynelish 14. Now, one of the great insider secrets in all of Scotch. This is a Highland distillery whose waxy, almost candle-like texture has made it a quiet obsession among people who really know whiskey. Here is the kicker. For decades, it has been a backbone of some of the most famous blends in the world, doing the heavy lifting while the big names took the credit. The 14-year-old is its calling card, bottled at 46%, with honey, citrus, a touch of brine, and that signature waxy mouthfeel you will not forget. For around $75, it delivers something genuinely unique. Drinkers chase this one for a reason, and once you taste that texture, you understand the obsession. Number 16, Aberlour Abuna. Back to Speyside for a whiskey that does not believe in subtlety. Aberlour releases this one in numbered batches, each matured fully in Oloroso sherry casks and bottled at cask strength, usually somewhere around a chest-warming 60%. This is a sherry bomb in the truest sense. Rich, thick, and loaded with dark chocolate, raisins, orange peel, cinnamon, and a spice that fills your chest. No age statement, no water added, just undiluted whiskey straight from the cask. Because every batch differs, fans chase specific releases the way wine lovers chase vintages. For around $75, it delivers an experience that feels like it should cost far more. Number 15. Millstone. Now to the Netherlands, which sounds like a punchline until you taste what one small family distillery has been pulling off. Zuidam is independent, family-run, and old-fashioned in the best way, even grinding its grain on a traditional Dutch windmill, which is where the name Millstone comes from. Their rye is the one to seek out, made entirely from rye, fermented for the better part of a week, and distilled slowly in small pot stills. It has gone head-to-head with the best ryes on earth and beaten them. Bold, spicy rye, warm baking spice, orchard fruit, and a clean, oily depth. At 50% and around $80, it proves world-class rye does not have to come from America. Number 14. Green Spot. Back to Ireland for a bottle with one of the best stories in whiskey. Green Spot comes from a Dublin family that has been trading since the early 1800s, who once marked their own single pot still casks with a dab of green paint. That tradition lives on today. It is bright and lively, with green apple, barley sweetness, a little spice, and a creamy pot still texture that is unmistakably Irish. At 40% and around $60, it is proof that small, traditional, family-backed whiskey still has a place in a world of giant brands. Harder to find than Redbreast, but worth the hunt. A true hidden gem with real history in every drop. Number 13. Compass Box Spice Tree. Now for the bottle that quietly argues you have been overpaying for blended Scotch your whole life. Compass Box is a small craft outfit that treats blending like an art form, and Spice Tree is its signature, where the giant famous blends play it safe. This one is matured with custom heavily toasted oak that pushes the flavour somewhere richer and bolder. Clove, cinnamon, baking spice, vanilla, and a deep layered warmth that tastes like it should cost 3 figures. At 46% and around $60, plenty of serious drinkers will tell you it outclasses luxury blends costing several times more. Skip the obvious choice and try this. Number 12, Springbank 10. Now to Campbelltown, once the whiskey capital of the world and now down to a small handful of distilleries. Springbank is the cult favourite. The bottle collectors lose their minds over, and the reason is simple. They do everything by hand, on site, from malting the barley to bottling, which almost nobody else still does. The 10-year-old is gloriously complex, with light smoke, brine, an oily texture, fruit, and a faint touch of funk that keeps pulling you back. At 46% and with rising prices, it has become genuinely hard to find. If you ever see a bottle near retail, do not hesitate. This is handmade whiskey in a world of automation, and you can taste every bit of that effort. Quick pause before the smoke bombs and the heavy hitters at the top. If you're enjoying this, drop a comment telling me how many you have crossed off and which one is still on your list. I go through the comments on every video, and the bottles you mention shape the next list I make. Subscribe while you are down there so the next one finds you. Now back to it, because this is where things get serious. Number 11, W.L. Weller. Back to Kentucky for the wheated bourbon that drinkers hunt like treasure. Remember Maker's Mark near the start and that wheated thread running through this list. Weller is the next rung up, and it matters for one electric reason. It shares its wheated recipe with the single most mythologized bourbon on earth, the bottle waiting at number 1. That makes Weller the affordable taste of what Pappy is built on, which is exactly why it vanishes off shelves the moment it lands. Soft, rounded, and easy with caramel, vanilla, honey, and gentle baking spice. At its real price, it is a steal if you can find it. Every bourbon lover should chase a bottle at least once. Number 10, Ardbeg Uigeadail. Now we step into the deep end on the peat-soaked southern shore of Scotland's smokiest island. The standard Ardbeg is a legend, but the one true obsessives reach for is this one, named after the dark loch that feeds the distillery. It takes Ardbeg's huge peat smoke and layers it over rich Oloroso sherry casks, and the result is enormous. Tar, bonfire smoke, and brine crash into dark chocolate, raisins, and a deep sweetness, all at a muscular 54.2%. It has been named the best whiskey in the world more than once, and one sip tells you why. If you want to know how far peat can go when it is done with genius, this is the bottle. Brace yourself. Number 9, Kavalan Solist Sherry Cask. Now the boldest left turn on the list, because this comes from Taiwan, a place most drinkers never think of. That is exactly why it matters. Kavalan ages its whiskey in serious heat and humidity, which pushes a barrel forward far faster than cool Scottish air ever could. The Solist Sherry Cask is the showstopper, drawn from a single cask at full strength, usually around 58%. A syrupy, intense sherry bomb packed with dark chocolate, dried fruit, big baking spice, and a thick, oily texture that coats everything. This is the bottle that proves world-class whiskey is not locked behind tradition or geography. Taste it once, and your whole idea of where great whiskey comes from quietly shifts. Number 8, Sullivan's Cove French Oak. Down to Australia, to the island of Tasmania, for a whiskey that shocked the entire industry. Back in 2014, a tiny distillery called Sullivan's Cove entered its French oak single cask into the World Whiskies Awards and walked away named the best single malt on the planet, the first ever from outside Scotland or Japan. Bottled at cask strength, around 47.5%, and aged in a French oak cask that once held tawny, it is rich and layered, with Christmas spice, dark chocolate, dried fruit, and cedar. Every bottle is a single cask, so think of it as a chase or a bar pour. It proved a tiny distillery at the bottom of the world could beat the giants. Number 7, Booker's. Back to Kentucky for the bourbon that kicked off the entire small batch movement. Booker's is named for the legendary distiller who created it, and his idea was radical: to bottle bourbon exactly as it came from the barrel. No filtering, no water. The result is a beast, usually landing between 62 and 64%, loaded with deep caramel, vanilla, oak, tobacco, and a heat that demands respect. For around $90, it is the bottle that taught a generation what real barrel-proof bourbon tastes like. This is not a sipper for beginners. It is the deep end, and every serious whiskey drinker owes themselves a trip there once. Number 6. Lafroy 10. Now the single most divisive whiskey on the list. This bottle from the south coast of Scotland's Smoky Island is so intensely medicinal that people either fall head over heels or bolt for the door. Think iodine, seaweed, tar, smoke, and a sharp, almost antiseptic punch that tastes like nothing else. There is a running joke that it tastes like a bonfire on a beach next to a hospital, and that is not far off. Bottled at 40% and around $55, it has been so beloved that it even carries a royal warrant. You might hate it, you might fall in love, but you have to try it, because no other whiskey polarizes a room like this one. This is peat at its most extreme. Number 5. Lagavulin 16. Right next door sits the bottle widely considered the king of Smoky Island whiskey. Lagavulin 16 is the benchmark, the standard every other peated malt gets judged against. Where its medicinal neighbor is sharp and bracing, this is deep, rich, and almost luxurious. Enormous, slow rolling waves of smoke pour over dried fruit, sweetness, and a long, warming finish that seems to last forever. At 43% and around $80, it is not cheap, but it is worth every penny. If you only ever drink one heavily peated Scotch, make it this one. It turned a whole generation of drinkers into lifelong peat lovers. Number 4. Yamazaki 12. Back to Japan for the bottle that changed everything. When this distillery opened in 1923, it became the birthplace of Japanese whiskey, and the Yamazaki 12 later announced to the world that Japan could play at the highest level. It is refined and layered with honey, peach, and a hint of Japanese oak that gives it an exotic incense and sandalwood note you will not find anywhere else. Bottled at 43%, it now sells for well over $150 when you can find it. The price is painful. But as a once-in-a-lifetime pour, this is the bottle that earned Japanese whiskey its seat at the grown-up table, and tasting it is tasting history. Number 3. The Glenallachie 15. Now, a pick that might raise an eyebrow this high, and that is exactly why it is here. The Glenallachie 15 is the work of Billy Walker, the legendary maker who once transformed another sherry distillery into a cult favourite and is now doing it again. A Speyside malt matured heavily in Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. It is dark, rich and decadent, with stewed dark fruit, chocolate, honey, dried orange, and a deep spiced sweetness that coats your mouth. At 46% and around $85, here is why it sits this high. Put it next to the most famous sherried single malt on earth, the one costing 3 or 4 times more, and many drinkers quietly prefer this. That is what a hidden gem does. Number 2. George T. Stagg. At number 2, the white whale of American whiskey that drinkers lose sleep over. George T. Stagg is released once a year as part of a tiny, fiercely hunted collection from one of Kentucky's greatest distilleries, bottled completely uncut and unfiltered, straight from the barrel. It shares a home with the bottle at number 1, but where that one is built on soft wheat, Stagg is the rye recipe taken to its most extreme. That uncut strength often arrives north of 60%, sometimes past 65%, yet it stays balanced with massive dark chocolate, cherry, leather, oak, and a finish that runs for what feels like minutes. The official price is fair, but you will rarely find it there. If you ever get a pour at a bar, take it without thinking twice. Number 1. Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve, and at number 1, the most mythologized whiskey on the planet. Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve is a wheated bourbon aged 15, 20, or even 23 years, and over time it became less a bottle and more a legend. Remember that soft wheated thread from Maker's Mark to Weller? This is where it ends, taken to its absolute limit, aged far longer than almost any bourbon has a right to be, and the result is staggeringly smooth with caramel, vanilla, toffee, oak, and a richness that lingers forever. The retail price is modest, but good luck. People enter lotteries just to buy it, and older releases trade for thousands on the secondary market. Most of us will never own one, but if you ever find a single pour on a bar menu, no matter the cost, you order it. Because this sits at the very top of every whiskey lover's bucket list, and tasting it once is a story you will tell for the rest of your life. And there it is. 30 whiskies worth getting a glass of at least once in your life. Here is the truth though. You do not need to drink all 30 to call yourself a whiskey person, and you do not need deep pockets either, because most of this list is sitting on an ordinary shelf right now. You just need to keep showing up with an open mind and a clean glass. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing, and we will see you in the next one.